So in Dr. Neil's garden there is an incredible amount to see, an overwhelming amount of possibilities for painted compositions. So what I've done is I've demonstrated three different approaches. We're going to begin with drawings, and I've demonstrated how you might make these drawings. Here's a line one, and one where I've worked with tone, and one where I've put together some colour shapes. So I'm going to get you to draw to start before our model arrives and when our model is here, and by taking these different approaches you can hopefully begin to edit and select a bit from all the possibilities that there are in this fabulous garden, which is, you know, particularly fecund at the moment. So we begin with the drawings, and then you will have a good idea of what it is you want to paint. And knowing how to paint is one thing, but knowing what you want to paint is a really helpful starting point. So the first kind of drawing that I'm going to make is a line drawing. I've got a thin stick of charcoal, and I'm going to work just with lines to help me look, first of all, because it's a complicated scene, and if I restrict myself to some lines and start to construct, I'm starting with the bridge and then working out from there to some of the trees. This is going to help me look and understand a bit better what's in front of me. It's also going to help provide a kind of structure. If I were to go on and paint this particular view, then many of these lines, which, as I've said, beginning with the bridge but following around the edge of the pond, are going to help me sort out what's the foreground, how do things then recede off up some steps, up a path, into the background, and I can see the distant hedge all the way over there. So just by restricting myself to line, I can just begin to construct a composition and begin to understand what I should include and what I can leave out. So you'll notice I've moved right around the whole page, and I should stand back now and then. So for example, working a bit with the edge of the pond, I'm doing a bit more at the bottom of the page to get something of the foreground. So to bring the foreground forward, I've got not quite sure what I'm going to do about the fountain, but so I'm working on grey paper with my thin stick of charcoal, and I'm restricting myself to line for this one. If I were to introduce a little bit of chalk, some white marks, given that it's grey paper, that might be quite useful, and also just because, as I've said, it's a complicated scene. It's often, you know, we often have the experience that we come to places like Dr. Neil's garden where there is so much to see that it's quite overwhelming. And one of the nice things about starting with these fairly simple drawings is that you can begin to edit and select from what's in front of you to begin to decide what will feature in your painting. So that's my first approach, working with line. for the second drawing, I'm going to work with tone, and I've got a thick stick of charcoal this time, and I'm going to look with my eyes half closed at some of these dark trees against the light on the loch. And again, because it's grey paper, I'm going to put down some dark tonal shapes to begin, and then I can introduce lighter shapes with the chalk. So because it's actually turning into a beautiful sunny day, with the light on the loch, I'm getting a very clear bit of contrast, which, as I say, I can emphasize a bit if I look with my eyes half closed. I see the silhouetted shapes of the trees and the bushes, and I can lay them down, and then these dark tree trunks are also providing a kind of frame that can lead, us out towards the water and the silver birch, I think. So we'll see how it is with the light on Monday and Tuesday, and the light will of course change, but this time, rather than a sort of linear structure, I'm building up a tonal structure, something that we'll see a lot of in the gardens is the variety of sort of pattern. So I'm noticing these hedges running along the path, a pattern that appears between the tree trunks and is a sort of middle area to my drawing. So the point of trying these different approaches is firstly to help you sort of just navigate all of the possibilities which are on offer, but it's also to help determine what exactly you're going to paint. And there's so much choice. There's one thing learning how to paint things. That's actually slightly easier than knowing what to paint. So this first stage of beginning to select from all the possibilities, and also try to identify what's going to be the characteristic of your painting. I'm kind of sorting things out into line, tone and colour, and they'll probably all be at work in the painting that you produce, but sometimes it can help to have that sort of clarity as you select from different possibilities. So that's working a bit with tone. So a third approach might be to start with colour. Now, I'm not suggesting you do all three approaches before you start painting, but maybe over the 2 days you could make studies, compositions for paintings using each of these ways. So obviously there's a lot of green, being such a lush garden, but I thought I would choose this view with various blossoms, and I'm working again with, this time with the side of the pastel, and just putting down some of the colours. I haven't put down outlines, and I haven't really put down any tone. And as I said, there's plenty of green. But this again can be a really good approach to composing and selecting, because my drawing only really explains colour, and therefore I'm, I suppose you could say, analysing or just considering this particular choice of composition in terms of colour. I'm going to just start introducing a bit more tone, really, so that those colours can be characterised as lighter and darker colours, and so that the sort of structure that I might have created in the other drawings using tone or line, I've now got to find how that structure can be developed according to colour shapes. And it'll be, as with the others, it'll be colour shapes but also textures. So I can gradually develop this colour composition into different areas. What I'm trying to do is help some of the foreground colours emerge, come forward, and get some of the background colours to recede. So building up things down here, the lower part of the page, just helping bring them forward. And what I need really is a kind of edge. I mean, I've got something of a tree up there, which I'll maybe just do in the charcoal. It's a little bit more tonal, a bit less colourful, and then bits of sky coming through. I'd like to find a better sky blue. Mix a bit more blue and white up here to create my sky colours. So as you can see, the colour approach is inevitably more complicated and takes time to really build things up. And perhaps I should have taken on a little bit less. But I think just that principle of seeing your composition in terms of colour. And as I say, there's a lot of green here, so actually colour of blossoms and so on is a bit more incidental. But taking this approach where colour is the sort of primary emphasis in your composition, I think is well worth doing. So we're going to have our gardener model Pete. We'll have about an hour before Pete gets here, so you could perhaps choose one of these approaches to find your feet a bit in this garden setting, and then we'll set Pete up, and you might continue, we'll just draw with Pete, but you might use these different approaches to make some studies of our gardener model, and then you'll have those drawings which can be combined with the information you get in these sketches, and also then just the garden itself, to make some small oil paintings.